Hello and welcome everyone. We'll be getting started promptly at 4 p.m. We're just opening a bit early to allow folks to get in. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're glad to have you. We hope that today's conversation is one that you find very informative. And we will be getting started promptly at 4 p.m. Welcome once again. As I stated before, we'll be getting started at 4 p.m. today. Come on in, pull up a seat, get comfortable, and be ready with your questions. And let's get started.
Okay.
All right.
Should I go, Althea? You're going. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hello and welcome. I'm Althea. Um, Thank you for joining us for this 30-minute webinar in our Research and Policy Critical Conversations in Language Education series. This year's theme is Let's Be Real about Literacy Development for Multilingual Learners. We will focus on addressing the real-world challenges and opportunities in supporting literacy development for multilingual learners. Through dynamic discussions with leading voices in the field, we will explore innovative strategies, research-centered approaches, and practical policy insights to enhance literacy outcomes for diverse multilingual learners. Today's webinar is Reading Science for Multilingual Learners, Lessons from Cognitive Development, and we will be speaking with Anna Taboada Barber. I am joined today by Anthony Tassi and Igone Artiagoisha. We are recording this webinar and it will be posted on our website after the event. Before we begin, please mute your mic to avoid interruptions. You can activate closed captioning by pressing the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. This event is provided as a public service. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed below belong solely to the guest speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of our organizations. Our panel comprises esteemed experts who work at the intersection of research, policy, and practice in language education, language access, and equity. You can learn more about them on the webinar's webpage. We do encourage you to ask questions via the Q&A box throughout the call. We will answer as many as possible at the end of our discussion. It is an excellent opportunity to tap into the wealth of knowledge we are fortunate to have here today. Also, click the chat button at the bottom of your screen to share your thoughts and comments anytime. Try it out by letting us know where you are listening from today. I will now pass the microphone to our facilitators.
Thank you so much, Althea. Hello, everyone, and hello, Anna. It's such a pleasure to have you with us in one of our webinars. And for me, since we know each other personally, to be spending this ratito with you here. We thought that we might start by asking you if you could tell us a little bit about your work on reading engagement in particular, motivation, and cognitive development as it relates to multilingual learners.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me and for the opportunity to connect with practitioners from different parts of the United States and the world, maybe. I'll try to be brief, and then I let you ask for expand on areas that you like. But I've spent most of the last 15 to 20 years working a lot in schools with children who are multilingual learners. And we all know that the name and the way to refer to them has changed. At that point, when I was just an assistant professor and starting my work, the term English learners was very predominant. I love the term MLLs. I also refer to them as emergent bilinguals because many of them are becoming bilinguals as part of being educated in a language that is not the language spoken at home. And my work focuses on two big areas or two big buckets of research. One that is very classroom focused, and that encompasses reading engagement. And by reading engagement is not just the liking of reading or the enjoyment of reading. Engagement is a very comprehensive term, an umbrella term, if you wish, such as other terms in education and psychology and educational psychology. And it's comprised from motivation. And within motivation, we have practices and traits, if you wish, or characteristics such as interest in reading, or but also practices that can be supported from the classroom, such as choice of books. So it's not only matching books to children's interest, but it's also supporting extended readings. And what many people, such as Marianne Wolf, has referred so nicely as deep reading, or connected text, and others. I was just reading an article the other day, others have referred to it as the love for the whole text. So instead of just having excerpts or extracts from text, providing children the possibility of having opportunities to be invested in reading, spend time reading, talk about their reading. So engagement comprises all of these. It's cognitive, it's strategic. So there are many components that are cognitive, such as using strategies during reading, learning strategies, questioning the text, but it's also being social about reading and discussing topics of interest and knowledge from text with others. That's why classroom discussions are very much a well-supported practice for all learners, but for multilingual learners in particular, not only because of the language development and the learning or the knowledge built from text, but also because it's motivating to know about a topic and discuss it with friends. And that happens when children have opportunities to have sustained reading within a topic, or a unit, or connected texts that relate to each other within a unit or a theme. And my other area of work it focuses, it's more cognitive and looks more at the development of bilingualism over time in the primary grades, and how bilingualism is leveraged, if you wish, or strengthens cognitive skills such as executive functioning skills, and particular executive control. And I can talk a little bit more about the theoretical framework for that, and also the evidence. There's a lot now that we're talking, and not only talking, but teachers are so imbued and learning so much about the science of reading. There's a whole plethora of cognitive research that also supports the idea that bilinguals are emergent bilinguals, multilingual learners are by the fact that they speak more than one language, strengthening their executive functions. So we're learning, and we've learned for the past 10 years, and now the evidence is abundant, that we know that not only they bring cultural assets and the singularities and the social or the cultural benefits of bilingualism, but that most multilingual learners also have cognitive strengths that can be used and leveraged in school in specific ways.
Yeah, and about that, I'm wondering if you can give us an example that illustrates how those cognitive benefits of multilingualism, those executive functions and self-regulation that we hear about, how those could be leveraged, for example, in the classroom by the teachers, practitioners, or even in the home by parents.
Yeah, how they can be supported, right? So when I use the word leverage intentionally, and what we are referring to here, I follow the work for many years, the work that Ellen Bialystok and my colleague Gigi Luke have done in Canada, both in Toronto and Montreal, which are very bilingual environments, especially Montreal, but also where they have dual language instructional settings that support bilingualism in different ways, right? So the basic theory, if you wish, goes from the idea that bilinguals are stronger in metalinguistic awareness. And that's another very broad umbrella construct or concept, right? So children, all of us are familiar with literacy and especially foundational literacy. So phonological awareness falls under metalinguistic awareness, and morpheme or morphological awareness falls under metalinguistic awareness. But, simply put, the idea is that metalinguistic awareness is different from the conversation you and I are having right now because it requires attention to language form, right? So whether it's phonemes or morphemes or even the structure within sentences, right? Whether how we structure our grammar. Once children, so the developmental cognitive research has shown that once children realize that language mappings are arbitrary, right? That the sound in a word is separate from its meaning, or that the ing morpheme in English denotes action, such as in running, I am running now, or the present, the present continuous tense, or that the word panaderia in Spanish, that every time we use ia, we are signaling bakery, the place where something is made from, zapateria, jugueteria, etc. So that morpheme signals the change of a verb into a noun, for instance. Once they have that awareness, they, bilinguals in particular, can use that metalinguistic awareness to focus more on to ignore, if you wish, or to pay less attention to the structure, to the meaning of language, and focus on the structure, precisely because metalinguistic awareness focuses on that form, right? So what Ellen Bialystok very ingenuely did many years ago was test bilinguals and monolinguals, 5 and 7 and 8-year-olds, in their ability to judge sentences. So that's a good example. The original work is a good example. And they had this judgment or sentence judgment tasks where they actually focused on determining if sentences that had crazy meanings, just to use a child-friendly term, if I'm sick tomorrow, I will have to see my fireman instead of my doctor, but were intact grammatically, if bilinguals were better at identifying those than monolinguals. And indeed, they were, showing that indeed that ability to judge sentences showed that they had an ability to, if you wish again, put aside the meaning in order to make a judgment about the structure of the form of language. And that original work in the 80s led to tons of work about executive control. And now, examples in the classroom, we focus more on supports for types of explicit instruction that can make use of the two languages, knowing that strengthens their executive function. So we don't necessarily go and focus on the executive function itself. We need to focus on foundational skills, but perhaps with an attention that allows to focus on two languages. And this is very much done in great classrooms in dual language settings, where upon focusing on the contrastive analysis in phonology, or even with the well-known cognates that we've been studying for years, or vocabulary that focuses on the two languages, we know that in that sense we're supporting that executive control, the benefits of bilingualism that go onto the executive control of bilinguals. That is naturally there, but that can be fostered, strengthened in classroom, and even at family dinners, when we are handling the two languages and having conversations in more than one language.
All right. So then in a way, you're leveraging what students already know in their native language in service of the learning of the other language, and sometimes vice versa too. By the time as students become more and more bilingual, then it could go from the L2, right, from the second or third language to the first one.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That comparing and contrasting to promote their metalinguistic awareness. Okay, so I'm looking at the time because I have so many questions, but so I'm wondering, and this is kind of like a hot topic, a burning question for many people in the field, I think, of bilingual education. If these cognitive benefits of multilingualism, if they are being considered, or to what degree they are being considered in the science of reading research.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great question. I think there's more literature coming out in that realm. It comes mostly from educational psychology or cognitive psychology literature. Um, I think there's more and more coming out. I think at this point where we are with the science of literature is there's a huge body, and we've just completed a large review of these studies, huge body of studies in all components of literacy. So in foundational skills, monological awareness, decoding, word reading, non-word reading, and also language-based skills or comprehension skills, right? Whether it's comprehension strategies or oral language supports and what academic vocabulary words to teach or how to benefit from rich text-based conversations. So there's a lot of work that points to the different many components or areas that we know contribute to literacy and ultimately to reading development over time. And there's a huge body of literature that supports that. And
Also for multilingual learners.
For multilingual learners. So all of these studies that I'm referring to, and we're completing a review for a model that we are seeking to support in terms of the different components, a model of reading. All of these studies have included multilingual learners, and we've established some criteria to filter these studies and make sure all of the science was represented broadly, but also in ways that really follow certain criteria for the studies being selected, right? So they are truly empirically driven, included multilingual learners in the US. And there was at least one study that we included in our review that included multilingual learners or bilingual learners abroad. So the idea is that there's tons of work that has been done that really hasn't made it to the surface in terms of pointing that there's a huge reading science, if not science of reading science, empirical studies that support that, for instance, bilingual learners need foundational skills. We know that, and how explicitly taught, very much like monolingual learners. But there is variation, and there's precisely because of the cognitive advantages or the cognitive benefits that they can leverage from their heightened or enhanced metalinguistic awareness. And there is some work that points to that.
Great. Okay. So when I'm now want to take it a little bit to the more practical. I mean, you have provided some examples, but I'm thinking of recommendations. So when considering this, cognitive advantages or benefits and how they can mediate achievement, right? What recommendations do you have for practitioners, for families of multilingual learners?
Yeah. So I like to think of recommendations in two or three ways. One is just like you pointed out, for practitioners, teachers who are so busy and have so much on their plates and they're grappling with the science of reading and how it applies to multilingual learners and so on, but also for parents. And then for the, whenever it's possible, for the support that teachers and parents can find in working together. And especially during these times where I think, school communities have for multilingual learners have become strengthened in more than one way in terms of the support that teachers try to bring to these families. And to the extent that recommendations vary if we're talking about monolingual settings, English-only settings, schools, or dual language or immersion settings. So focusing on the majority, which is English-only settings or English instruction, and literacy instruction in English. I say that anything that can be done, in terms of supporting children reading, whatever is being read at school in the first language. So that develops knowledge, right? So develop knowledge and talking about leveraging and finding how to use the two languages in ways that find fusion or that creates synergy and ultimately renders benefits for these learners. It's not only contrasting, but it's really developing knowledge on a topic that is being learned at
Mhm.
school, and that perhaps, the child can spend 10 minutes, before dinner reading at home. So I love to give examples of science topics because that's the content areas are always my more motivating or engaging topics. Um, and I find that children find them that way too. I always say if they're reading about the tundra at school, it might be a great idea to read something about the tundra, la tundra antarctica at home. And with libraries, generally all school districts, remote as they are, have either a library at school or libraries in their vicinities. So picking up, there's more and more libraries coming in more than one language. I'm sorry, more and more books available in libraries. So supporting that is huge. I think another thing that teachers can do is um, not try to teach if they are not comfortable with a language, but at least develop awareness. And I think the science of reading is doing a great job with that.
Mm.
Contrastive analysis. I mean, there's more and more work that is coming from the University of Florida and the U-Fly program, where they really putting materials out there that support at least teacher awareness that there's more commonality in terms of phonology and phonological awareness between languages than we thought there were. So awareness of sounds that are common and those may be causing difficulty to learners. So those are a few that I'm thinking of. I can think of more, but I know we're short of time.
No, and this is great. I always tell teachers that I work a lot with teachers in dual language bilingual programs, and but there are some that are not bilingual. They are teaching in English, right? And I always tell them, I mean, it's great if you're bilingual. Of course, it's great. Then you can really, but even if you're not, you can always ask those questions about how would you say this in your
Exactly.
native language? How is it similar or different? So. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm definitely looking at the time and I want to give Anthony an opportunity. He has some questions for you too, but thank you so much, Anna.
Sure.
Yeah, what a rich discussion. Thank you so much, Anna. I'm going to go right to questions from our audience, and I'm going to combine two that I see here in the chat. How does oral language strength affect metalinguistic awareness? And maybe by connection, for teachers who are working with children who have very limited reading and writing skills in their home language, they come from home environments with very, very limited reading and writing. How does that impact the work that you're doing? How does it impact your recommendations?
Yeah. So, if by oral language strength, we mean how developed the oral language is in either language or in the home language. Um, we always talk about the fact that um, bilingual learners, multilingual learners are not one of one kind. They share certain characteristics, and one of them is the fact that they speak a different language at home, or that language is more predominant than English, and they receive instruction in English. So if by oral language, again, the question is very good. By oral language strength, we mean level of proficiency, for use a classic to use a classic term, or how developed that language is. Um, yes, the more we are aware of the sounds, of the units, of the structure of a language, and the more we can contrast it with a language that we're getting to learn, or we're beginning to learn, or we're developing, in this case, English for many of these learners, the better. Because it allows for those contrasts. It allows for those questions that Igone was talking about from teachers and also from students in terms of what they are reading. So I have examples, from first, second, third graders, and one of my favorite ones is a second grader who said, Yeah, I learned what these cognates are. They don't help me much because they mean the same thing. They are just spelled a little different. So it's actually sometimes in the differences that they find across languages that they benefit more. So if by oral language strength we mean the more developed or the more comfortable the learner is with the language, yes, that's going to strengthen that metalinguistic awareness in different ways. And I know you asked me a second question, but I don't think I could. I was fast enough to write it.
Yeah, just the implications in your work and recommendations that you offer for children with very, very limited reading and writing in the native language and households, that
Yeah,
have very
that's a great
limited
question. That's a
skills
great
there.
question. And that goes to the variability question and the fact that they all come in different shapes and with different needs. So and that to that I go back. Teachers again, it all depends on the settings they are. And assuming we're working in English only settings and children come with limited writing and limited reading in their first language, I think the best thing teachers can do is provide well-structured, explicit literacy in English because there's only so much time in the day. So we know those children are going to struggle most likely more than those that come with a basis of literacy, whether it's foundational skills or well-developed literacy in their first language. We know that many of those skills transfer from L1 to L2 or from one language to the other. So given that there's so many days in a week and so many hours in a school day, I would say explicit, systematic literacy instruction in the English language. That's the best we can do. And, you know, teachers cannot be teaching both languages if they don't have the supports or, again, the knowledge, or not only the knowledge of the language, but also the instructional knowledge and the time, because they are not in those settings. So that I would say focus on good systematic structure, literacy. And by structure, I mean systematic and explicit instruction in the first in English.
So if I could ask an additional question to that, like imagining either this child is in a dual language program in which his or her first language is one of the languages of instruction of the program languages, or in a case, even if they are in an English only setting, if there is an ESL teacher who can support and is bilingual in their native
Oh,
language.
absolutely. If that is available, absolutely.
Then wouldn't it make sense in that case to provide that well structured, explicit instruction, but in
the
their
first
native language, because that's where they have that oral language. They may not yet have the literacy, but they have the oral. Okay. I just wanted to make sure because
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was focusing on the limited schedule that teachers have, and assuming, and I've been that teacher when, okay, we have to teach these kids to read. We have only so many hours in the day. I don't have the resources. If the resources are there and the time is there and the first language can be supported, by all means, there's going to be huge transfer and huge benefits and long-term benefits from the first language to English. So by all means.
Okay,
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah.
Yes, because there are gonna be some people in the audience who may have,
No,
and
I
there
understand.
even in ESL in monolingual programs that you may have a bilingual support person that can provide
Absolutely.
special ed or ESL. Okay,
Absolutely.
Althea is back. Do we have time for one more question or not? If we
I
don't,
think we
it's
can.
okay.
Oh no, I think we can do one question, but we have to be expedient.
Okay, so there's one about translanguage in here. How do you think translanguage in pedagogy contribute to building foundational biliteracy skills while strengthening cognitive functions for multilingual learners?
Oh, that's a great question. I think translanguaging is a wonderful phenomenon that we see in all of our learners. I think it does strengthen those skills. Is there an empirical study there that actually looks at translanguaging as it's been defined and conceptualized? I don't think so. So it's just an opinion based. I think the fact all of our multilingual learners, or a big majority, tend to translanguage, shift from one to the other within the sentence, within a conversation. And it's okay. It's not only okay, it's favorable to support that. What are the exact benefits for their executive functions? I don't know. There isn't science or empirical findings that support that, but we know of all the other benefits.
So we need more research on that area.
Yeah, I think it's
in
a
terms
great
of how we
research
can.
question. Whomever asked it, I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe there you could at least leverage their translanguaging to make those connections maybe.
Yeah.
How are you're fluidly going from one language to the other, what belongs to one language to the other, and that you are promoting their metalinguistic awareness just by doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, bringing awareness. Thank
Yeah.
you, Anna. It's been great. It's been a
It's
pleasure. Thank you
wonderful
so much.
to just be in conversation like this with you, and great questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This was so interesting. Thank you so much to our audience for being here. This wouldn't be possible without your interest, so we are grateful for your attendance. A huge thank you to our speaker today. Thank you so much. Thank you to our facilitators. You guys were awesome. Please watch your emails for a recording of this amazing webinar today. We hope that you are able to receive helpful information. We apologize for not being able to get to your questions, but we do thank you for your participation. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Althea.
Bye.